You know that moment when you're lying in bed with your partner, and suddenly one of you whispers something different? Maybe it's a character, maybe it's a scenario, maybe it's just a voice that isn't quite your own. And then you both freeze. Someone giggles. The spell breaks. You roll over and pretend it never happened. Here's the thing nobody tells you about roleplay. The laughing, that's not the problem. The laughing is actually kind of the point, at least at first. Because what we're really talking about here isn't just playing pretend. We're talking about permission. Permission to want something that feels a little silly, a little scary, a little outside the careful box you built around who you're supposed to be in bed. And yeah, that's vulnerable. Of course you're going to laugh. So let me say this right now. If you ever wanted to try roleplay but felt too awkward, too self-conscious, too worried about ruining the mood, this is for me to tell you something important. You're not broken. You're not bad at this. You're just human. And we're going to fix that frozen, giggling moment together. Let's talk about why roleplay feels so impossibly awkward in the first place. Because once you understand what's happening in your brain, everything gets easier. Here's what happens in most long-term relationships. You start out with all this electric uncertainty. Who is this person? What are they like? What will they do next? Your nervous system is firing on all cylinders because everything is new. Everything is discovery. But then you get comfortable. And comfortable is beautiful. Comfortable is trust. Comfortable is safety. Except your brain doesn't get turned on by safety. Your brain gets turned on by mystery, by novelty, by the unexpected. So you end up in this trap. You know each other so well that you can predict every move, every touch, every sound. You become experts at each other's bodies, which sounds romantic until you realize that expertise has removed all the surprise. You're not exploring anymore. You're executing a routine. And listen, I'm not saying this to make you panic. I'm saying this because it's the natural progression of intimacy, and nobody warns you about it. You think something's wrong with you. You think the attraction is dying. But really, you've just traded mystery for comfort without realizing you need both. That's where the slow drift begins. Not with a dramatic moment. Not with a fight or a betrayal. Just a gradual flattening. Sex becomes predictable. Predictable becomes obligatory. Obligatory becomes, well, you know that feeling when you're both going through the motions, but nobody's really present? When you're thinking about your to-do list while their hand is on your body. That's the cost. The future you're building if nothing changes. Not a dramatic ending. Just a quiet one. Two people who love each other but have forgotten how to want each other. Two people who share a bed but dream alone. And here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. You can love someone deeply, completely, permanently, and still feel absolutely nothing when they touch you. Because love and desire are not the same thing. Love is built on knowing. Desire is built on wondering. So what do you do when you build a life on knowing each other, but your body is screaming for something to wonder about? Okay, here's the uncomfortable part. The real reason roleplay feels so cringy isn't because it's silly. It's because it requires you to be seen wanting something. Not just wanting sex, wanting something specific. Something that reveals your interior life, your fantasies, the parts of yourself you usually keep private even from your partner. When you suggest roleplay, you're essentially saying, I have desires that our regular dynamic doesn't satisfy. And that feels dangerous. What if they judge you? What if they think you're weird? What if they laugh? But not in a fun way. That's the pattern to interrupt. The thing nobody tells you. The reason most people never try this. Because try means risking rejection from the person whose acceptance matters most. But here's what I've learned, and I need you to really hear this. That moment of awkwardness, that vulnerability, that risk of being seen, that's not a bug. That's the entire point. Because when you share something that feels risky, and they meet you there, when they say yes to your weird little fantasy, that's intimacy. That's the deep stuff. That's what actually bonds people, not the perfectly choreographed performance. The laughing isn't ruining the moment. The laughing is you two navigating something new together. And new is exactly what your relationship needs. So let's actually do this. Let's talk about how to start without letting that awkwardness derail everything. The first thing you need to understand is that roleplay isn't about acting. It's about permission. Permission to behave differently than you normally would. Permission to want different things. Permission to take up space in a new way. Start with the lightest possible version. Don't dive into elaborate costumes and accents. Just shift the power dynamic slightly. Maybe tonight, one of you gets to call all the shots. What you do, when you do it, how fast or slow. And the other person, they just receive. They don't have to think or perform or reciprocate. They just get to experience being wanted in a very specific way. Here's what that actually looks like. Let's say you're the one taking control tonight. You don't announce it dramatically. You just start differently. Maybe you tell them to lie down and close their eyes. Maybe you decide you're going to kiss every single place on their body except the obvious places, and they're not allowed to move or guide you. Maybe you describe exactly what you're going to do before you do it, building that anticipation. The psychology here is simple. You're creating a container where the rules are different, where they don't have to be the same person they are all day, where you get to explore what happens when you're a little more demanding, a little more deliberate, a little more in charge. Now here's where people get stuck. What if you feel stupid saying these things out loud? What if your voice cracks, or you forget what you're going to say, or you both just dissolve into giggles? Then you giggle. You laugh. You say something like, "Okay, that sounded way hotter in my head." And you keep going. Because the hottest thing isn't a perfect performance. The hottest thing is someone who wants you enough to risk looking silly. Someone who's willing to be awkward and imperfect, because the connection matters more than the execution. The troubleshooting is this. Treat the laughter as part of foreplay. When you laugh, you're releasing nervous energy. You're bonding over the shared weirdness of being human. And then you can lean in closer, lower your voice, and try again. The laughter doesn't break the mood if you decide it's part of the mood. Once you have that foundation of shifted power, you can start layering in scenario. And this is where it gets fun. You don't need elaborate backstories. You just need a simple frame that gives you both permission to behave differently. The coffee shop scenario is perfect for this. You're strangers who just met. You don't know each other's last names. You don't know each other's histories. All you know is there's this pull between you, this chemistry you can't explain. So when you touch each other, it's discovery. Every kiss is the first kiss. Every revelation about what they like is brand new information. You can start this at dinner. Pretend you've never met. Ask the questions you asked on your actual first date. But this time you already know the answers, so you can tease them. You can flirt like you used to when everything was uncertain. And then when you get home, you get to seduce someone who's choosing you for the first time all over again. The sensory detail matters here. When you touch them as a stranger, you're supposed to be learning. So you touch slower. You pay attention to texture, temperature. You notice the goosebumps on their skin, like you've never seen them before. You react to every small sound they make like it's giving you new information about what they need. And if it feels fake, if one of you breaks character to make a joke or reference something from your real life, you just fold it in. You wink. You say something like, "Okay, maybe we met before, but I'm still discovering you." And you keep going. The fear here is that breaking character ruins everything. But here's the truth. You're not trying to become different people. You're trying to see each other with fresh eyes. The goal isn't perfect immersion. The goal is rediscovering the person you already know. Now here's the layer that takes it deeper. Anticipation. Building the want before you even touch. This is where texting comes in, but not the texting you usually do. Not the, "What do you want for dinner? Did you pick up the dry cleaning?" text. I'm talking about planning the idea hours before you see each other, creating a narrative that you'll complete together later. Maybe you text them in the afternoon. "I've been thinking about you in that specific way all day. Tonight, I want to try something. Are you curious?" And then you don't explain. You just let them wonder. You let their imagination do the work. By the time you're actually together, they've been building their own anticipation. Their nervous system is already primed. And when you finally touch them, it lands differently because they've been waiting for it, wondering about it, building it up in their mind. The scenario here is delicious. Let's say you've been texting about this mystery thing you want to try. They've been guessing, imagining, spiraling. And when they walk in the door, you don't immediately explain. You just start. You tell them to sit down. You pour them a drink. You talk about your day like everything is normal. Except there's this current underneath everything. The shared knowledge that something is about to shift. The temperature in the room changes. The air feels heavier. Every casual touch carries weight because they're anticipating more. And you're in control of the pacing, drawing out, making them wait just a little longer. The psychology of this is powerful. Delayed gratification intensifies every sensation. The touch they've been thinking about for 6 hours hits differently than the touch that happens spontaneously. You're working with their nervous system, not against it. And yes, they might break at some point and say, "Okay, seriously, what are we doing?" Because the anticipation becomes unbearable. And that's when you lean in close and whisper exactly what you've been planning. Or, better yet, you show them. If this feels manipulative or game-playing, hear me. This isn't about power trips or control. This is about intentionality, about building something together instead of letting it happen by default. The person receiving this anticipation isn't being tricked. They're being invited into a shared experience where both of you get to feel that electric uncertainty again. So here's what I want you to take from this. Role play isn't about being someone you're not. It's about exploring the versions of yourself you don't usually let out. The demanding version, the playful version, the mysterious version. It's about giving your partner permission to do the same. Start small. Shift one variable. Change who's in charge, or pretend you just met, or build anticipation before you even touch. And when you laugh, because you will, let it be part of the intimacy. Let it be proof that you're trying something new together, that you care enough to risk looking silly, because that's the real secret. The hottest thing you can do isn't the perfect performance. It's being brave enough to want out loud, being willing to say, "I miss feeling surprised by you," and then actually creating that surprise together. You already know each other deeply. Now go discover each other again, not as the people you become comfortable being, but as the people you could be if you gave yourselves permission. That first moment you suggested might still end in giggles. But maybe this time, you don't let the laughter stop you. Maybe this time, you lean into the awkwardness and find out what's waiting on the other side.